Today at Tiger Drop Films, we're gonna dive into Mechagodzilla, who is my favorite Godzilla antagonist of all time, and I'm gonna dive into the meaning behind him and some of my own assumptions about this character. And to kind of explain it on a primitive caveman way, because I'm part caveman or, space ape, like the Showa aliens, the idea of a robot Godzilla is a definite hell yeah for me. I remember being about 3 years old and seeing my first Godzilla film, Terror of Mechagodzilla, and just getting that image of Mechagodzilla ingrained into my young imagination. And with Godzilla on the news more than ever, I just feel so inspired to really dive into this franchise and talk about this character who means a lot to me. So let's get into it. If Godzilla can be a metaphor for things such as atomic weapons, war, and other bits of destruction against ourselves, then I think that Mechagodzilla is representative of humanity's hubris. Whether it's mankind or alien races, the point is that I think that any race that becomes so technologically advanced and we believe we're the top dogs, well, if Godzilla's the one that comes in and puts us back in our place, then Mechagodzilla is our response to that. Having our egos broken as our militaries are destroyed and our cities demolished by Godzilla, the fact that we create a robot in his image shows how hurt we are. We still want to be the top species on the planet, and that means creating, well, our own Godzilla to have. And I'm sure all of us know about the original Godzilla film and how it's a metaphor for nuclear weapons, but it's not just that. It's also about the oxygen destroyer, a fictional weapon in the film, of course, but it's a stand-in for how humanity's always trying to one-up itself to the detriment of our own future. As in, the oxygen destroyer could be developed further if its blueprints are found in the hands of governments around the world, and therefore it could have been a weapon worse than the atomic bomb. Ultimately, the oxygen destroyer is used against Godzilla himself, and that is what defeats him. But my point is that I think Mechagodzilla as a concept is a lot like that oxygen destroyer. A weapon made that is supposed to be so destructive, more so than its original counterpart. If the oxygen destroyer is more destructive than the atomic bomb, then Mechagodzilla is deadlier than Godzilla himself. And I find this little tidbit to be coincidentally quite poetic if you consider in the Millennium series that Mechagodzilla is built around the bones of the original Godzilla who died to the oxygen destroyer. And the fact that the original Godzilla got to become Mechagodzilla and then save one of his own species, I think is a pretty poetic way to kind of make Mechagodzilla a bit more of a heroic force. And maybe showing that even if we have to live with these gigantic super weapons, maybe they can cause some sort of peace. But anyway, let's start from the beginning and talk about my personal favorite, Showa Mechagodzilla. One little thing I find neat about Mechagodzilla himself is how his first opponent was Anguirus in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla in 1974, which I find to be pretty cool considering Godzilla himself. His first monster he fought was Anguirus back in Raids Again in 1955. Kind of a cool coincidence for them to both have Anguirus be the first monster they fought. Mechagodzilla first appearing as a disguised Godzilla and brutally beating up my beloved Anguirus is truly a unique first appearance and introduction to this character, and I think it's a way of introducing Mechagodzilla without directly showing him, and it goes so hard. So right out of the gate, Mechagodzilla himself truly makes a great first impression, especially considering that when he first appears, he's kicking ass and causing destruction, and of course we know something is up because this fake Godzilla's atomic breath is yellow. But the fact that Mechagodzilla comes out swinging so hard is fascinating for me, because if you look at his previous new enemies, and just looking at how they first appear in their films, for instance, Hedorah is a bit of a slow burn, as it slowly becomes stronger and bigger throughout the film until the end of it. And then you have Gigan, who only appears in the latter half of his film with King Ghidorah. And then Megalon, he actually does appear earlier in his film, but he's more just a big thug-like character that likes to have a good time. So the fact that Mechagodzilla himself is appearing right out of the bat and messing with the audience, because we know Godzilla's acting out of character because he's attacking Anguirus. And this is such a unique setup because it plays off the established heroic Godzilla that we had since the Hedorah film. And I think it's so cool that by this point in Godzilla's career, and he's been a hero for so long in the Showa era, that Mechagodzilla can come in and truly become such a indomitable threat is so damn cool. And throughout the course of this film, we get to see Mechagodzilla himself revealed fully, and that he's created by aliens who look like space apes from a dying black hole planet. And what I really like about this concept is that the fact that Mechagodzilla, of course, is built by these humanoid characters, I think sells this point I'm about to discuss. You see, everyone and their mother can tell you that Godzilla was created by atomic bombs, and his whole first appearance is about a metaphor for nuclear war and the horrors of devastation caused by hydrogen bombs. And in that original Godzilla film, he is defeated by another super weapon, a doomsday device, if you will, in the form of the oxygen destroyer. And that ties into the whole film's idea of humanity creating new super weapons to surpass the atomic bomb, and how it can bring upon our own downfall. And the fact that an alien race knows about Godzilla himself because he's become such a powerful, heroic force defeating alien invaders in the past, it's pretty interesting how this alien force thought that if they're going to conquer Earth so they can live on it, they're going to have to create their own Godzilla, their own super weapon. And I think that kind of ties into the dynamic between Godzilla and Mechagodzilla over the years. Whether it's aliens or humans, the fact that these intelligent races have to build a super weapon to counteract Godzilla and the image of himself is pretty telling of our own hubris. Just like how we're always upgrading atomic bombs throughout the years and making them even more devastating, these nuclear weapons. I think Mechagodzilla definitely represents that. This opposing force of humanity's technological achievement and our bloodlust for warfare. And you also got to consider that out of all of Godzilla's foes, and I know that King Ghidorah is often paraded as Godzilla's arch nemesis, but I really believe that Mechagodzilla himself should take that title solely because he's had such a tremendous winning streak against Godzilla, unlike any other monster, including Mothra. In the 1974 film, their first duel ends in a draw, as Godzilla is blasted into the ocean, pouring out blood, and Mechagodzilla himself is sent to the ground, starting to malfunction from the sheer force of the fight. The fact that his first fight with Godzilla ended like this, with both parties taking each other out, it's pretty admirable. And then in the final fight of the same film, we get the 2-on-1 fight with King Caesar and Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. But earlier we got to see Godzilla himself training in a thunderstorm where he gets hit by lightning so he can gain magnetic powers. The fact that Mechagodzilla caused Godzilla himself to train is pretty noteworthy, and it comes into play where Godzilla uses this magnetic field to take out Mechagodzilla once and for all by removing his head. It's so badass. And then we get Terror of Mechagodzilla, where we get to see the Interpol agents using a submarine to find the carcass of Mechagodzilla from the previous film, which I think is pretty telling that humanity wanted this technology so fast. And Terror of Mechagodzilla is my favorite film of all time. So we get a cool story about Katsura, Dr. Mifune, Mughal, and Titanosaurus that takes more of the forefront instead of Godzilla and Mechagodzilla. But needless to say, Mechagodzilla himself in this film is still intensely awesome. He has a new salute that he does that is also done by the Black Hole Planet 3 aliens, and his new revolving missiles are so destructive that I wish I had some in case I ever get stuck in traffic. I'm kidding. But this time around, it's Mechagodzilla who has a partner in the former Titanosaurus, and they both tag team Godzilla. And notably in this climactic fight, they both end up burying Godzilla underneath the ground and stomping on his grave. I mean, goddamn, they put Godzilla in his own tomb. But of course, the Big G bounces back and is able to take them both down. But this time, there's a bit of a fail-safe, as Godzilla once again takes off Mechagodzilla's head, but there's a secondary head underneath, and he's only able to be defeated due to Ichinose breaking through to Katsura's heart and letting her know that she is still human and not a cyborg. And that is what gives Godzilla the edge to defeat Mechagodzilla when Katsura tragically sacrifices herself because the control for Mechagodzilla is within her. And what's interesting is that this idea will come into play later in the franchise. These ideas of some kind of being connected to Mechagodzilla himself. That this destructive force is connected to something biological. Whether it's later on the bones of the original Godzilla, or King Ghidorah's consciousness, or some kind of human pilot being involved, or some kind of sacrifice, like in City on the Edge of Battle. I think it's pretty interesting how the Godzilla franchise is able to come back and redevelop and revitalize the concept of Mechagodzilla as many times as they've upgraded and evolved Godzilla himself throughout the years, including the origin stories. And what I especially find endearing is that if we look at this new Reiwa era, and yeah, let's just include the MonsterVerse as well, out of the other major popular characters such as Mothra or King Ghidorah or even Rodan, it's only Mechagodzilla who's appeared more than them this time. And I find that pretty awesome as a Mechagodzilla fan. And let's look at it this way. Mechagodzilla has appeared in both Godzilla animes in some capacity. He's appeared in a non-Godzilla film in the form of Ready Player One, which is crazy to me, and was a welcome surprise. And of course, we all know he appeared as the final boss in 2021's Godzilla vs. Kong. And I want to note that the nanometal Mechagodzilla in the Godzilla Earth anime trilogy, he's mentioned in all three films. And while I sure as hell wish that Mechagodzilla actually appeared to fight Godzilla, I still think it's awesome that he's such a focal point in this trilogy, and that he's still a threat that can even surpass Godzilla if left unchecked, and once again ties into the idea of aliens and humans wanting to create a monster to defeat Godzilla out of what they consider to be their best, most technological advanced super weapons and supercomputers alike. And I'm happy that in this trilogy we at least got to see an alien Mechagodzilla once again, even though it was, yeah, we only got like a few shots of him in that first film, and then I think his head in the second one before, well, he became a city. But I think it still goes without saying that that storyline did capitalize on the importance of Mechagodzilla as a foil to Godzilla himself. And even when you have a higher concept Godzilla, such as Godzilla Earth, the Big Chungus Godzilla, the fact that Mechagodzilla is able to adapt to that kind of concept and fight Godzilla on different terms, but came so close to defeating him, and that ultimately came down to a human decision to save the day, was pretty fascinating to me. And then you get to Singular Point, where the end credit scene is Mechagodzilla, a fusion between the Showa and Millennium incarnations, which is just incredible to see. The fact that the Kiryu Mechagodzilla still has such a profound impact to this day. And in the MonsterVerse, the fact that Mechagodzilla once again came close to killing Godzilla had me on the edge of my seat, and he was even going to do the kiss of death right back at him. And I think it was poetic to have my boy King Kong and the King Godzilla team up to defeat Mechagodzilla. There's something poetic about that, especially when you take into consideration that King Kong fought Mechanicon before Godzilla ever met Mechagodzilla. I just think that's pretty interesting. And I find it to be an honor for Mechagodzilla to be beheaded by King Kong himself. Just something primal about it that I love. And like I said earlier, I'm practically a caveman or a space ape. So, me see violence, me like it. Anyway, I mentioned how Mechagodzilla's had probably the greatest winning streak against Godzilla out of every other foe. That's why I consider him to be his ultimate foe. So let's bounce back a little bit to 1993, the Heisei series, where Godzilla fought Super Mechagodzilla, and he was actually defeated. Not killed, but Godzilla was paralyzed from the waist down by Mechagodzilla and his shock anchors from the Garuda. And this fight always stuck out to me as a kid, because I've never seen Godzilla get taken down to such a degree where he couldn't walk or stand, and he was practically helpless by the hands of Mechagodzilla, where humanity may have ultimately triumphed over Godzilla with their technology. But much like how King Kong came to help Godzilla, or even King Caesar in the past, the fact that Rodan bounced back to give his life force to Godzilla was heartwarming. And it was nice to kind of get a little bit of a team up between Godzilla and Rodan again, even though it was kind of not much of a team up, but you know what I mean. And Godzilla bounces back, and we get to see him use the red spiral heat ray for the first time, and it's able to melt Mechagodzilla's once impenetrable armor. And I also gotta say that if you look at the Heisei series up to that point, Mechagodzilla gave Godzilla the hardest fight he's ever had. Much more than any Super X, much more than the likes of Biollante, King Ghidorah, or Mecha King Ghidorah, and Mothra, Batra, and Rodan. Mechagodzilla gave him his hardest fight to that point. And then we jump to the Millennium Era, and I've already made videos about Godzilla against Mechagodzilla and Tokyo SOS. If you want to check it out, I got a Godzilla playlist here on this channel waiting for you. But I think the Millennium Mechagodzilla, or Kiryu, and as a Yakuza fan, it's kind of funny calling him Kiryu now, but anyway, the Millennium Mechagodzilla, he really had a great win streak against his Godzilla, especially considering that Mechagodzilla had the bones of the original 1954 Godzilla. And I think that if there's any way for Mechagodzilla to truly defeat Godzilla, well, that's a great way to do it. Now, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla ends with a draw in the end, but in Tokyo SOS, we get to see Mechagodzilla completely just knock Godzilla out. It's that legendary fight at the Diet Building, where they're trading blows, but then Mechagodzilla uses his new drill ability to go into Godzilla's weakened chest from the previous year and finish the job with a triple hyper maser attack. But what I love about this is that even though Mechagodzilla truly beat Godzilla in a fight, and even that's kind of hard for me to say because, you know, I love Godzilla, but I think that if anyone's going to do it, it would have to be Mechagodzilla. However, in this film, humanity orders Mechagodzilla to finish Godzilla off once and for all after the Mothra larvae web him up. But Mechagodzilla resists because the spirit of the original Godzilla once again takes over. But this time it's not a berserker rage rampage. Instead, this Godzilla did not want to kill his brother or his son. He just wants to rest in peace and get this other Godzilla out of harm's way. And I found that to be quite touching, especially if you look at Tokyo SOS as part of Godzilla's 50th anniversary birthday party sort of thing. And so, Kiryu grabs Godzilla and they both fly out to sink in the Mariana Trench. It's a pretty, honestly, a tear-jerking ending for me, as just a guy who's always loved Tokyo SOS. I'll be honest, I do love that film, and especially seeing it on the big screen last year, man, it really hit me in the feels, as it was not just nostalgia, but just a true way for me to love a film that I grew up on. You know, it wasn't just nostalgia, just admiration for something that's always been a core part of myself. And I just thought that was really touching. As we saw here with the Millennium Mechagodzilla, or Super Mechagodzilla in the Heisei series, the Monsterverse Mechagodzilla, the anime Mechagodzilla, and what an incredible entrance Showa Mechagodzilla had, and the fact that he buried Godzilla for a little bit. I think it's telling that no matter the era, the time period, or the form, Mechagodzilla is always gonna give Godzilla one hell of a fight that he has to earn. I think it's pretty notable if you remember how the Oxygen Destroyer was a super weapon that killed the original Godzilla, but the original Godzilla came back as Mechagodzilla to help put another Godzilla in a peaceful rest. Or alternatively, I think the parallel to the Oxygen Destroyer is just a way to show that humanity or any intelligent race is always trying to assert nature in the form of Godzilla. And Godzilla's a character who's always gonna make us fall in our hubris. You know, he's the kind of guy that fights back and shoves missiles back up our own asses. That's what Godzilla does. He's not only a force of nature, but the ultimate antithesis to our technological advancements, that even if we think we're the top dogs, Godzilla puts us back in our place. And then Mechagodzilla is our response to that. It kind of hurts humanity's egos, so we try to create something in the form of Godzilla to try to make ourselves maybe feel better, or just think we have some kind of control on the world still. And that's what I think Mechagodzilla represents. Of course, he can represent many things, but that's just kind of my perspective on it, as a sort of reflection over the many years that he's battled Godzilla. No matter what, we can always count on Mechagodzilla soon following after Godzilla himself. And this year happens to be Mechagodzilla's 50th anniversary, so I wanted to make this video to kind of celebrate that. And with that in mind, I'm looking forward to whichever short film format they give old Mechagodzilla. So let me know in the comments below what your favorite Mechagodzilla is. I've been Tiger Drop Films, and thank you for tuning in. I really wanted to talk about my boy Mechagodzilla. I just love this character to death. I love Mechagodzilla as much as I love Godzilla himself. And I hope you share the same thoughts too. And if you do, let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please stay tuned. I've got many more videos over so many different topics, from Godzilla to Ultraman to Yakuza and many more. So, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.